I need to explain that the Mayor is unfortunately unable to be with us this evening, but we are able to proceed on the basis that the Deputy Mayor is going to chair the meeting for you this evening. And so, Mr. Deputy Mayor, would you like to commence the meeting?
Yes, thank you, Caris. Yes, welcome to the first Teams meetings of Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council. Really pleased to see everybody here, and I hope you're all keeping well. Thanks to Caris and Democratic Services and all the other officers for all the hard work they put into getting this meeting organised, and hopefully we can get through it without too many difficulties. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcast via the authority's internet site. Images and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes within the authority. So are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry. We have apologies from Councillor Howard Barrett, Councillor Jeremy Davis and Councillor Julian Amos.
Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest. I've got an interest in item number 6, which I've already declared. Anybody else? Yes,
if I read out the ones that we've received in advance, and then if there are any others, they can be added. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you've already confirmed your interest in item 6, and I should say that all of these relate to item 6. So we have Councillor David Jones, Councillor Clive Tovey, Councillor Geraint Thomas and Councillor Dave Hughes, and I can see that Councillor Dave Hughes has joined us now. Are there any other declarations of interest?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, declaring interest in item 6. I'm member of Plant Bach Preschool, and we've received a grant from the NDR grant scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I knew that because you took the trouble to ask me beforehand, and I just forgot to add you to the list.
That's okay, Mondron officer, dim problem o gwbl.
Croeso. Councillor Skinner.
I think I need to declare an interest, Caris, because we had a grant at Fir Tree Centre as well as a community centre.
Yes, then I would think that you would need to declare an interest. This is the difficulty with hearing these right at the last minute, because I'm not absolutely certain of the nature of your interest, because it's a personal matter for you. But if you feel that you need to, then you will need to declare your interest. So thank you for that, Councillor Skinner. I can see that Councillor Gareth Richards has also got his hand raised.
Yes, my apologies, Caris. I'm chairman of Quakers Yard Community Centre, and we received a grant.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Richards. Then you'll need to declare your interest. Are there any others? Thank you. Then perhaps I'll just say very quickly that when you have declared an interest for the item that you have declared, when we get to that item and it's announced, what you will need to do is turn off your camera and your microphone, because that will effectively enable you to leave the meeting. You'll still know when that item has ended, and you'll be able to rejoin, but you won't be able to influence the item in any way, because nobody will be able to see you or hear you. So that's the way we're going to deal with that. It looks like it's only going to be on item 6, so I'll remind you when we get to item 6 so that we can proceed with that. So I'll hand back to the Deputy Mayor then to proceed with the agenda.
Yes, thank you, Caris. Yeah, agenda item number 3 is a notice of motion regarding the cleansing of gullies, and I believe that Councillor Gareth Lewis is going to address the council. Councillor Lewis there?
Apologies, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I must remember to switch my microphone on. In February, homes and businesses across the county borough were devastated by storms and sustained inclement weather. Extensive flooding in our communities saw residents displaced from their homes, with many unable to return as refurbishment had not been completed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Residents have expressed the view that these problems have been exacerbated by the lack of gully clearing and drainage maintenance by the council. The infrequency of these works, combined with a considerable delay in action in reports from residents and councillors, has, alongside heavy rain, created the perfect storm at the detriment of the people we represent. The current maintenance programme requires that the county borough's 10,500 gullies are cleaned just once every 2 years. As Merthyr Tydfil Council does not own or lease a gully cleaning machine, residents are wholly dependent on the local authority purchasing spare capacity from Caerphilly County Borough Council. We believe that residents across Merthyr Tydfil deserve better. Therefore, Council asks that by the scheduled November meeting of Full Council, a business case is presented to Full Council that outlines the feasibility of cleansing all 10,500 gullies in the county borough as and when necessary, and at a minimum on an annual basis. This business case should also include the cost to the local authority of purchasing or leasing gully sucking vehicle or vehicles. Full Council will then be in a position to make a decision on implementing improvements to the gully cleaning maintenance programme.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a seconder for that motion? In fact, is there a motion? Can you just clarify what the motion is, please, Councillor Lewis, and then we'll need a seconder.
Okay, the motion is to allow the local authority to implement improvements to the gully sucking, gully cleaning maintenance programme.
And is there a seconder for that?
I second that, Caris, yes.
That was Councillor Carter. Thank you, Councillor Carter.
Okay, are there any comments on that?
Councillor David Hughes.
Thank you, Caris. In response to the notice of motion, Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council currently have around 10,500 gullies and highway drainage systems within the county borough and require routine maintenance to ensure they function effectively. As part of Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council's maintenance programme, gullies and the immediate pipe connections are cleansed and emptied by subcontractor Caerphilly County Borough Council on a 2-year cycle. This was passed by Full Council 2 years ago. As Councillor Lewis is fully aware, a full business case as requested has already been prepared before this notion of motion was received and will be presented to the council in October, not November, as we've already got the policy to come back to the council. The business case will dictate the feasibility of cleansing all gullies on an annual basis, as well as being able to react to issues. The cost of bringing the service back in-house and the option of buying or leasing a gully sucker machine. So instead of November, we wish to bring back that the business case to October Full Council.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Barry.
Thank you, Caris. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. February brought Storm Dennis to us. Heartbreaking for this county borough and the residents of this county borough. We as Cabinet visited some of the worst affected areas almost immediately. And as I recall, we picked Gareth Lewis up on the way down to visit those residents. Cabinet members spent up to a week speaking with residents, really to establish the extent of the issues that they were facing from first-hand experience. Mr. Deputy Mayor, being Cabinet Member for Finance, I just want to put a financial and logistical perspective to Councillor Lewis, Carter and Jones's notice of motion. We sought to support the Welsh Government from the storm damage that occurred throughout the borough, some £8.5 million. So only this week we received notification of the first tranche of that money, some £1.9 million. Much of the delay has been a financial delay on the funding mechanisms from Welsh Government, and they've still not fully committed to the required £8.5 million that they accepted was required. And perhaps some of the political efforts here in terms of bringing this notice of motion can be used to lobby our AM, Dawn Bowden, to move the Assembly to tangible support for residents of the authority with the finance we require from the storm of last February. A gully sucker is just one element of this highly complex picture of measures this administration is targeting in a multi-agency approach to mitigate what we are told was once in a 1,000-year rainfall event. Something I don't think any of us sign up to. We're likely to see it again. Just to put in perspective what we're talking about with the works that are being done: drainage, stabilisation work, culvert repairs, replacement of culverts, reinstatement of culverts, embankment and scour protection, embankment reinstatement, debris removal, masonry repairs, flood defence construction, flood modelling, site inspections, and gully sucking is just one element of a very complex picture here. We currently have the gully sucker business case being worked on. A gully sucker is circa 150,000 to buy, 27,000 to lease. The lead time, if we buy one, will be 8 to 9 months. However, we can lease in that period to make sure that we get it done on the approach of winter. And finally, Mr. Deputy Mayor, we've worked tirelessly over the COVID-19 period to continue the focus on the issues thrown at us by Storm Dennis. The motion is welcomed. However, it ignores all of the additional elements that have been assessed, submitted to Welsh Government, and now require the finance to realise the works. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, what I need to just point out to us is that we've already gone astray on the first proper agenda item. There is one other person indicating to speak, and that's Councillor O'Neill. But what we've done is go into the debate rather than deal with questions. So I think what we need to do is go back and see whether anybody actually had any questions. I'm assuming, Councillor Lewis, that you don't have questions on your own notice of motion, or do you?
I do in response to Councillor David Hughes and Councillor Andrew Barry.
No, I think that would just move us further on into the debate. What we needed to do was clarify if there were any questions. So are there any questions? Councillor Lewis, if you can put your hand down for now. Thank you. Are there, Councillor O'Neill, are you asking a question?
No, I wanted to make an observation, please, Chair.
Right. So if there are no questions, Mr. Deputy Mayor, can we move, with your permission, on to the debate? We have already heard two of the comments that are going to be made, and the next person who had indicated to speak was Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, so Councillor O'Neill would like to make his comments.
I think the factual matters have been ably dealt with. This was a success, a tragedy for the residents, but the response from Merthyr Council and generally Merthyr members was a good one, and it was done with empathy and with industry. Unfortunately, some of that work wasn't passed down to those residents, and they weren't informed accordingly what was going on. These are not my words. These are the words of our engineer, Carmen Morris, who very recently, in company with Councillor Lewis, briefed community residents about the work done. I will say, and I dare say nobody will challenge me, they were highly impressed by his understanding of the issues and his answers to the questions. And to be honest and truthful, I was impressed with the community's response and attitude, because some of the information they'd been given was not correct. This is not the first time that Gareth Lewis has given incorrect information on other matters where he's challenged us in relation to finance and our structure as far as that. I remain disappointed with Gareth in this instance because he starts very well. He clearly has a good link with the community, but somewhere along the way he decides to get political and it always gets lost there. I hope as we prepare for the future that we concentrate again on working together as directed by the Assurance Board, as opposed to causing mischief by minor political issues. This was a job well done. I'm happy to support the community and they need our help. But that some of the actions of not feeding the information down into the community were unhelpful. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Gareth Lewis has indicated to speak, but if he speaks again, he will close the debate. There is another person who has indicated to speak, and that's Councillor Darren Roberts. So I would advise that you call Councillor Roberts
Yes.
now.
Councillor Roberts, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The motion itself is just to ask for a business case to come back to council. We can have the debate about who said what and everything when that debate comes back. We welcome a full business case. I speak on behalf of my residents, obviously, but I also speak on behalf of all residents of Merthyr Tydfil, where a concern is raised around the gully sucking service. This was actually agreed by council. I think it was in April 2019 to remove the service. I'm not afraid to put my hands up and say that was the wrong decision. I think we need to reverse that decision and talk about bringing this service back in-house. And if there is a cost to it, then we'll have to have that debate to discuss that cost. But for me, I think this motion is acceptable, and I welcome all members to consider the motion this evening. Thank you.
Councillor David Hughes, can you put your hand down because you've already spoken on this motion and you won't be able to speak again. I then have Councillor Tony Rogers. So, Councillor Tony Rogers.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and Carys. I was the original one who raised the gully problems, and what the example I gave was up in Caraca, in Pant, Gladys Street and Edward Street, with the problems that it might have entailed to the Harwood. But what I'm going to do now is I'm supporting Councillor Hughes' statement. He worked very hard at this and his team, and I think this is the line we should take now. So I'm not going to be very brief. What I'm going to say is my support is for Councillor Davis. Councillor Hughes' comments, and I agree with those, and I think if we follow those lines, we will be going all right. So I will not be supporting the motion.
Councillor Gareth Richards.
You're on mute, Gareth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor. I just want to support the motion put forward by the Plymouth Ward councillors, because it was an issue raised by time and time again at the time of Storm Dennis from the 9 residential and business premises in Quakers Yard, who claim that the flooding was exacerbated by gullies on the A4054 being blocked, the village being at a lower level than that road, and it was just flooding down into the village from that area as well as from the river. Got to be acceptable, but it was being made worse by those gullies being blocked. So obviously I welcome the statement from the promoters of the motion. I also welcome the statement from Councillor Lewis, Councillor Hughes, that the council are looking into bringing forward reports to the October meeting, but I will be supporting the resolution to ensure that it is recorded in council tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Chaplin.
Thank you, Carys. I will be supporting the motion. I was a bit disappointed with Councillor Andrew Barry pointing the finger at lack of funding from Welsh Government, because the money ultimately was coming from the UK Government, and on a number of occasions our hard-working MP, Gerald Jones, brought this up in Parliament, the need to bring the money forward. So it seems to be, you know, whoever is making this political isn't the Labour Party. There was nothing political in the notice of motion. This is a serious issue that needs the support of the councillors. Thank you.
Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you. Just to remind Councillor Kevin O'Neill, Mr. Deputy Mayor, this is not a minor matter. We are talking about 10,500 gullies that are not being cleaned on a regular basis throughout the county borough. And clearly, I welcome the fact that the business case is coming to the October meeting, but this is a real issue which has added to the problems of the storms that we get in now on a much more frequent basis. And the answer to this problem is not to clean the gullies approximately once every 2 years, but far more on a regular basis and at least once a year. And I fully support the motion in the name of Councillor Gareth Lewis.
Councillor Harvey-Jones. Councillor Harvey-Jones? If you're on mute, I can't see you, but if you're on mute, you'll need to unmute.
Can we come back to Councillor Jones after someone else has spoken?
I think we'll have to. So the next person to indicate was Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Thanks, Carys. Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I think we're all a bit lost here. I think we all support Councillor Lewis's notice of motion, but I think what we're forgetting is, right, that this work was already in train. It's coming to council in October, right? So it's already happening, and we already told the residents of Troy Drew that when we met over a month ago, or 15 before that now, at Troy Drew Park.
Councillor Lisa Mitten.
Hi colleagues, apologies, but my screen is frozen. Not that you'll mind that, I'm sure. I just wanted to take up a couple of points there. I think to clarify to all my colleagues, what Councillor Hughes is saying is that the report will be brought back earlier than the motion is requested, which is a positive thing. It'll be brought back in October. And just to reiterate the points, we're not saying we're not in support of this. What we're saying is that there was obviously some background issues in relation to this particular matter, in relation to why the gully sucker was taken out of the budget and we were using Caerphilly's gully sucker. As Councillor Roberts alluded to as well, you know, he said it's not something that he now thinks we should have done, you know, and I'm sure many of us feel like that. But at the time we were given budgets and reasons for taking that away, and that is another debate. So just to reiterate, you know, we're not saying this motion is we're going against the motion. I'm sure me and my other independent colleagues are fully in support of the motion, but to clarify from my cabinet member that he is actually bringing this report earlier. Just wanted to reiterate that point, colleagues. Thank you very much, Monitoring Officer and Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey-Jones, are we able to get Councillor Harvey-Jones now? No, Mr. Mayor, I still can't hear from Councillor Harvey-Jones, and unless anybody is telling me that they can see him and see what the problem is, I'm going to need to go to Councillor Gareth Lewis, who will then close the debate. I think we'll have to go to Councillor Gareth Lewis.
Okay, thank you, Monitoring Officer. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm pleased to hear that from a number of colleagues, cross-party colleagues, that were in support of this motion. It's not about politics, it's about doing what's right for those poor souls that got flooded, not just in Troy Drew, but in Pendrabach and throughout the county borough. And I hope the decision this evening will be unanimous.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. I think there are no more comments, and that closes the debate, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Okay, I think we can take that to the vote then.
What I would just say before I read that out, just to be clear, the motion that is before you is that by the scheduled December meeting of full council, a full business case is presented to full council that outlines the feasibility of cleaning all 10,500 gullies in the county borough as and when necessary, and at a minimum an annual basis, and also includes the cost of the local authority purchasing or leasing gully sucking vehicles. I take that as meaning by the scheduled November meeting would include the October meeting, and therefore I don't think we need to amend that. So I will now ask, would all councillors who are in agreement with that recommendation please raise their hand on the screen? Sorry, when I say raise the hand on the screen, I mean raise the hand, press the raised hand button. We were originally going to count your hands, but I think we are now counting those hands. Sorry. Are we complete, Anna? Are you going to know when we're complete?
I think we have 28 voted in favour. Is that the number of people in the meeting?
Should be. Is that unanimous? Is there anybody who is voting against the motion? Could everybody put their hands down, first of all, please? And we think that is unanimous, but I need to give everybody the opportunity in case it is not. So can I have everybody's hands down? Councillor Lewis, Councillor Michelle Jones, Councillor Gareth Lewis, Councillor John Thomas. Can you just put your hand down for now, please? Thank you. Would all councillors who are not in agreement please vote? And there are none. And any councillors who wish to abstain, please vote. And there are none. So that's carried unanimously, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item number 4, committee cycle to consider the report of the interim chief executive. And I believe that Councillor Kevin O'Neill is going to take this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Committee cycle 2020 to 2021. The summary is as follows. Full council to approve a programme of statutory meetings for the remainder of the originally anticipated 2020 to 2021 municipal year, and to provisionally agree dates for 2021 to 2022. The cycle is set in accordance with the rules of procedures contained within Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council Constitution. Additional meetings may be requested outside of these dates for special or extraordinary issues that require urgent resolution. A calendar with committee dates is attached at Appendix 1. The recommendations are as follows. The committee cycle for the remainder of the originally anticipated 2020 to 2021 municipal year be approved. Secondly, the provisional committee cycle for the 2021-2022 municipal year be agreed, with final approval to be brought to the next AGM in 2021. I so move, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that?
Yes, I second that, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Okay, are there any questions on that item?
There are no questions, Mr.
No
Duff.
questions. Are there any comments?
And there are no comments, Mr.
Comments? Shall we take that to the vote then, please?
And then I will ask, as with the last one, would all councillors in agreement with the recommendation please raise the hand? So press the hand on the screen. Is that right? Just checking that Anne counts all of those. So that is carried unanimously, Mr Mayor. Mr Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. We'll make sure we take our hands down.
Mr Deputy Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, Councillor Smith.
I'm having a problem voting because the yellow one's not coming up. I voted for the motion for Gareth Lewis and I just voted for the committee cycle and it's not coming up.
Right, if that's not showing, can Councillor Bill Smith raise a physical hand and be counted that way?
You certainly can. What I'm going to ask, whilst we talk, whilst this next item is presented, I think there are 28 of you in this meeting and I'm getting 28 votes. So even if it's not showing for you, Councillor Smith, I think it's recording you. But I'll ask the Democratic team check that to make sure, and whatever else, actually raise your hand physically, so we'll make sure that we've got you covered wherever way it goes. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
It doesn't show on the screen. It doesn't show the hand on the screen, so you wouldn't see it.
That may be the answer, Councillor Smith. I do think there are 28 of you, so I think that you are being recorded as voting. But I'll ask that we just get that checked, and then I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to move on to item 5, and we'll check that while we're going along.
Okay, thank you, Karis. Yeah, agenda item number 5, appointments, committees and representatives to other bodies 2020 to 21, to consider the report of the Interim Chief Executive. And I believe this is Councillor Kevin O'Neill again.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The summary is for full council to consider the appointment of elected members to sit on statutory committees and represent the authority and other outside bodies for the 2020-2021 municipal year. The recommendations are as follows. The position of Mayor and Deputy Mayor remain with the current councillors until the AGM in May 2021. Appointments to committees for the balance of the originally anticipated 2020-2021 municipal year remain the same as 2019-2020. And representation outside bodies and champion posts for the balance of the originally anticipated 2020-2021 municipal year remain the same as 2019-2020. Finally, delegated authority be granted to the political leaders in the event of a vacancy to nominate as representatives or a representative to apply such agreed nomination to the Chief Executive. I so move, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Is there a seconder for that?
I second that, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Midden. Any questions?
No, there are no questions, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
No. Are there any comments?
No, there are no comments, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Take that to the vote then, please.
Would all councillors in agreement with the recommendation please raise the hand on the screen? And again, that is carried unanimously, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. If everybody could lower their hands again then, please. And we move on to agenda item number 6, which is non-domestic rates, retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief in Wales 20 to 21. I need to declare an interest in this item, so I'll hand over to the monitoring officer who's going to take it from here.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Could I please ask, therefore, that everybody who has declared an interest turn off their camera and their microphone so that they are effectively removing themselves from the meeting. And having done that, then I will just announce that this is agenda item number 6, non-domestic rates, retail, leisure and hospitality rates relief in Wales 2020 to 2021. I'll hand over to whoever is taking this report.
That'll be me, monitoring officer. Pleasure to bring this report tonight. Firstly, to outline the parameters of the report, to talk some of the tremendous financial amounts that this authority has overseen in distribution. It'd be remiss of me if I didn't mention some of the key players within the authority who brought this about. The report highlights the expansion of the non-domestic rates, COVID rates to businesses, support to businesses. The relief targeted 3 specific areas: retail, leisure and hospitality. The scheme aims to provide a discount of 100% to eligible businesses with a rateable value of 500,000 or less. The 2 main grants administered under COVID-19 support measures were the 25,000 for small to medium-sized businesses and 10,000 for micro businesses. I'll say at this point I didn't apply for any of these grants and didn't get these grants. Not that I'm bitter, but I just want people to know. The report explains the qualifying factors and types of businesses that were eligible. To date, the Revenues Department, through the award of COVID-19 business support grants, have assisted 1,054 businesses. Grant 1, the £25,000 grant, 161 businesses. Grant 2, up to £10,000, 893 businesses. The total grants paid out by this authority under those schemes is £12,926, nearly £13,000. In addition, we've assisted 459 eligible businesses to the total value of £6.5 million that have a rateable value of less than 500,000 in retail, leisure, hospitality sectors, clearing the business rates liabilities for 20 21 in full. The assistance provided by this authority to date is £19.5 million, an astonishing amount. The figures are huge. The effort by the staff and the authority has been phenomenal, to a point where it has been recognised by Welsh Government. We're the top performers in Wales as an authority in relation to business support. The additional benefits for the administration during the cross-departmental working, new ways of enhanced support for our business community and subsequently our residents of the borough. Safe to say, COVID-19 experience has massively highlighted and progressed working methods in this authority that will pay dividends for years to come. And finally, Monitoring Officer, to mention Steve Jones, Mike Parry, not least Mark Price from Revenues, Alan Owen, Chris, Ryan, Lance, and the rest of the team in Regen, and all those officers now involved in the interdepartmental work that is now progressing as a result of this initial work. And so the recommendations, 3.1, the implementation of the non-domestic rates retail leisure hospitality rates relief scheme in accordance with the rules described in this report be approved. And at 3.2, section 47 A1A and section 47.3 discretionary relief of the Local Government Finance Act 1988 shall apply as regards to the amendments described above in accordance with the rules described in relation to those amendments. It is reasonable for the council to make this decision having regards to the interests of persons liable to pay council tax set by the council. I move. Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Sir Barry. Do we have a seconder?
I second, Monitoring Officer.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Are there any questions? No, I can see no hands raised. Are there any comments? Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Monitoring Officer. My colleagues and I in the independent group would just like to congratulate Welsh Government for introducing this scheme, which will give 100% rates relief to retail, leisure and hospitality businesses with a rateable value of £500,000 or less during these difficult and unprecedented times. However, the independent group would urge the Minister for Finance and indeed the rest of the Welsh Government to introduce a similar rates relief scheme for all business sectors. I have today sent an email to Dawn Bowden, our Senate representative, to ask if she could lobby the ministers on behalf of all of our businesses, of all our business owners in Merthyr Tydfil. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Councillor Darren Roberts.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I echo most of what Councillor Barry said, really. You know, in extremely difficult circumstances, the officers of the local authority really stepped up and showed how good they are in respect of, you know, how professional, the professionalism and the duty that they got for the job. You know, this is an exceptional circumstance. No one foreseen this coming, and the stress that most businesses, well, if not all businesses, has suffered is shocking, really. But you know, the figures are staggering. They really are. You know, the local authority has done exceptionally well here. Obviously, we've had a lot of great deal of support from Welsh Government, and you know, what can I say is I just hope we don't see anything like this again. But you know, the way things are going, you just don't know. But I'd like to echo what Councillor Barry said and congratulate the officers for delivering this scheme to the businesses of the local authority, of the county borough. Beg your pardon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Kevin O'Neill, please.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. What I'd just like to add is that the period of COVID-19 so far to date has been a difficult time for many people. But Merthyr County Borough Council, that's all the elected members and the officers, have really risen to the bar. Their performance in many areas has been exceptional. And this is independent praise from Welsh Government in this particular area where they topped the tree. It is absolutely outstanding and gives us a great springboard, hopefully, for an economic recovery. I'd also like to say that I'd have to congratulate my colleague, Councillor Barry, who's worked very, very hard in coordinating and working with officers in delivering some of these structures and systems for delivery in relation to these funds. All elected members referred local businesses who came to them, and all elected members became a conduit then for providing support, finance and guidance for those people at their hour of need. We talk about the flood, which was a terrible thing for many people, but people's livelihoods were also at risk in this area, and our elected members came to the fore right across the political piece. This is an indicator of how we should work at all times, and certainly an indicator where, by this crisis, our departments, revenues, rates, etc., all those financial areas and regeneration have come together in a much more natural way, complementing, sharing data, helping each other, but ultimately giving a much better service to the public. I feel very proud to be a part of Merthyr County Borough Council when I hear the story of our business support for our community. Thank you, Monitoring Officer.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? So, Councillor O'Neill, if you can lower your hand, we'll take it to the vote. And would all councillors in agreement with the recommendation please raise their hand? I'm just waiting to hear whether that's all been counted. They both declared an interest. Sorry, we are just checking everything, but we think that that's carried unanimously. I will just ask the question, so if everybody can lower their hands. Councillor Rogers, can you just lower it? Thank you. Are there any votes against? So I have 2 votes against. Ah, right, yes. Okay, so that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Monitoring Officer, I'd just like to point out that there's some IT issue where when you're raising and lowering your hand, sometimes it freezes, so there may be a bit of a delay, which is what happened, I think, there with Councillor Jones and Rogers.
Yes, I think you're exactly right, and Anne managed to point that out to me before I decided to count those as 2 votes against. So we've counted that as all being unanimous. We'll just make sure we give everybody time. Before everybody else comes back in, I can see a hand raised from Mark Price.
Yes, Caris, just basically that the matter has been dealt with. Can I ask Mary leave, please?
Yes, of course you can. Thank you.
And thank you, Andrew Barry, for your kind words. Okay, thank you very much, all.
Thank you. So, has everybody who had declared an interest, have they all rejoined the meeting now? I think I can see everybody, and I'll hand back to Mr. Deputy Mayor then to deal with agenda item 7.
Yeah, thank you very much, Monitoring Officer. Agenda item number 7, Catfarthur Heritage Area Special Purpose Vehicle. To consider the report of the Interim Deputy Chief Executive, and I believe that Councillor Geraint Thomas is leading on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And I think I saw earlier Geraint Talvin Davis and Caroline Davis joining the meeting. So welcome both on the next step of the journey on the Crucible project. The Catfarthur Heritage Area Special Purpose Vehicle, the summary of the report is set out in between 1.1 and 1.13. The highlights of the report really, it's the memorandum and articles of association in 4, the company's charitable objectives in section 5, and the business case in section 6. It's proposed the structure will be a company limited by guarantee with charitable status. This is the most common structure adopted by sizable charitable organisations in the culture sector: museums, galleries, heritage and education organisations. The CLG has no shareholders. It will be established exclusively for charitable purposes defined in the company's objectives. In section 7, sets out the next steps with all the reports that will be coming to the council for approval. And in section 8, the financial implications of setting up the SPV. So I'd like to go straight to the recommendations, Mountain Officer and Deputy Mayor. All along on this journey, we've always been unanimous in what we're doing with the Cyfarthfa project, and it's a great way of showing how the council works as one. So I'd like to set out the recommendations in 2.1. The new SPV is named the Cyfarthfa Foundation. In 2.2, the SPV's memorandums and articles of association to enable the new SPV to be established and the charitable registration process to commence be approved. A bank account be opened for the new SPV and 5,000 be deposited in the bank account by the council. And 2.4, the first directors be appointed. I so move, Chair.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I second that motion, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
Councillor Clive Jones, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I've got two questions. I support the recommendations. On page 36, under paragraph 1.8, it says there that the board of the foundation would be limited to 12 and include the elected members of Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council, community representation, and a range of relevant specialist expertise. My question is, what is the interpretation of community representation? Is that in the local context? And how many community representatives is there envisaged having on this board?
I don't think that can be answered by officers or by Councillor Thomas.
Shall I answer that, Caris?
Yes, if you can. Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
I don't think we've agreed a figure at the moment, Clive, on the actual numbers of community representatives. It all depends on how qualified they are, and if they have the specialist skills, we may have more people from Merthyr with the skills that we think. So I think that's not limited in number.
Well, that I think partly answers the question. Obviously, the answer to that will come back then at a later stage. My second question is on paragraph 1.9, again on page 36. And this paragraph states the first members of a charitable company would normally be subscribers to the memorandum and articles of association. And the question is, perhaps we don't know the answer to this one either, will the subscribers pay a membership fee? And will anyone be able to become a subscriber?
Oh, right.
I don't think any membership fee has been discussed at the moment. So I think unless Gary Morgan or Alan Owen can answer that one.
Yes, I think our guest, Gerard, is indicating that he can answer that. So perhaps I could ask him. I'm afraid I've lost him from the screen and I can't see whether he's able to help us. I can see that Geraint Morgan is indicating that he can answer. Geraint,
no, it's not envisaged that anyone would be required to pay towards it, if that is what you're asking, Councillor Jones.
But it was a question, and so can anyone? Asking Geraint Morgan, can anyone become a subscriber then?
Well, what we'd be looking for in the first instance, and this would be coming back in one of the reports, in one of the future reports before you, is we will be looking to recruit directors or trustees as members of the board. Subscribers would be one of those trustees stroke members, and obviously it would flow from there. That detail, Councillor Jones, would form part of a future report.
So would the subscribers, whoever they are, be the persons who will elect the directors in the end?
The report before you at the moment is just to appoint the first director. A process will then need to be followed in order to appoint the other directors. We're not yet at that stage, Councillor Jones.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Bill Smith next, because he does seem to be having a problem raising his hand. So I know that he's indicated by showing his hand. So Councillor Bill Smith.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Right. Thank you very much. On page 38, on number 444, same thing as Clive said, that you're having a director. Do we know the director who's taking place? No?
No, we don't at the moment know who the director is going to be, Councillor Smith. When we set up the Extant Leisure Trust, the first director was Richard Marsh. That is yet to be determined. In all likelihood, it will be an officer of the council who will be the first director, and their role will be to set up the company in Companies House.
Sorry again, on the comments you made there, so if the director coming from the local authorities, will he be trained? Because you know what happened last time when we first had a press. We put a guy in there wasn't capable. No. And also, if you're looking for committee members, you there, and some didn't have a clue. So would the committee members be sat down and explain what the trust is all about, and not just ad hoc?
We need an initial director appointed in order to set up the company at Companies House. That, to all intents and purposes, will be the only function of that director. We will then look to appoint further directors and trustees in order to get the new special purpose vehicle, the new trust, up and running. But again, all we're looking for at the moment is to establish the company at Companies House for approval of the articles of Memorandum of Association, so that we can set the ball rolling to move it all forward.
Okay, I'll accept that, but at the end of the day, I stood on the first trust.
Yes, I know that.
And we'll see what mess that was in, because the chair didn't work with the chief executive, and vice versa, and we all went pear-shaped.
But we're not here to discuss what happened then.
No, I have to stick to what is in this report, and I think Geraint has answered your question on that. I want to move next to Councillor Roberts. Who have you still got your question, Councillor Roberts?
No, I took my hand down, Monitoring Officer. The question about the appointment of the director has already been asked and answered, so I retract my question.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? There are no more questions, Mr. Deputy.
Can we move on to comments then, please?
Councillor Darren Roberts first, please.
Yeah, thank you, Monitoring Officer. I welcome this report. We all knew it was coming. Council has been informed that this SPV was being set up, and I'm just thankful it has come to the first council meeting post lockdown, if you like, so that we can discuss matters and get on with business. The potential for the county borough with this project is absolutely massive. So it is important that we get going on it, but it is more important that we get it right from the onset. So I welcome the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Davis. Councillor Chris Davis, I can't see you. Are you possibly on mute?
Yeah, sorry, Monitoring Officer. Thank you for that. This is a fantastic report and a long time coming. Really, really exciting opportunity for the county borough, obviously to develop the Crucible and take forward the Cyfarthfa plan. What I would like to just say in comments is the question answer asked by Councillor Clive Jones about whether directors pay a notional sum. It is typical for company limited by guarantee directors to pay a minimum of £1 to secure their liability. So that's something that will need to be considered and obviously bottomed out with obviously Companies House. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin O'Neill.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I was fortunate enough this week to have a presentation on the Cyfarthfa report from Zoe Thomas. It was inspirational stuff, to be honest though. I know many people here from both sides of the political divide are supportive of this, and it's been a long journey so far. Many are frustrated, and I understand that, but it's not from the want of energy working behind. And I know, as I mentioned before, this is one that we're all fully behind, whatever our political position. There's some real exciting things in trail for this project, and I wish it fair speed ahead. That's all, and I'm sure with the engagement of our elected members, and it's very reassuring to hear the questions from Councillor Jones from his ward. He's a tremendous champion for the heritage area, and I believe his interest and engagement is very, very positive. Let's look upward and onward in this one. I know there's voices behind the scenes who are very much involved. We welcome your work. We support you fully, and this is something that's going to turn Merthyr into a totally different place. Yeah, I just want to make those comments. Thank you, Monitoring Officer.
Councillor Andrew Byrne.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Welcome the questions from all members. It just shows the idea of what we're talking about here. I hope that we can bring those presentations that the Cabinet have had to full council. They are truly inspirational. It absolutely transforms the area. And in relation to what Bill was saying, I think we're all a little sort of nervous about setting up what would appear to be another body similar to what's gone before. But I think I'm reassured the professionalism of the people who've been involved, and not least the enthusiasm and drive that Councillor Geraint Thomas has brought to this. Honestly, I think we've got a long way to go, but I'm really enthused by what is happening here. I think the people that we've got involved are the right calibre. They're world beaters. We'll be pleasantly surprised when those presentations are brought to us as a council, and you'll see the future of Merthyr Tydfil is extremely bright. Thank you, Monitoring Officer.
Thank you. Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Thank you, Caris. Yeah, just to agree with the speakers before me, you know, we're very fortunate to have Geraint Alvin Davis and Caroline Davis of the Design Commission of the Wales champion our Cyfarthfa Foundation project. You know, I've seen the master plan, I've read through reports, and I know, councillors, you must be, you know, desperate to see it yourselves. And when it comes to a workshop, you are going to be amazed like we were, right? It's going to transform Merthyr's future, right? And it's using our past to transform Merthyr's future. It's a fantastic piece of work. So I was enthused reading it, and I'm sure you guys will be, you know, as excited as I am. So yeah, thank you very much for everybody supporting this.
Okay, I think that's finished the debate now. So if we can take it to the vote, please.
So would all councillors in agreement with the recommendation please raise their hand? Yes, and that is unanimous, is it? Thank you. That's carried and unanimous.
Okay, thank you. We'll just make sure we take our hands down before we move on to the next item.
So that's item 8.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, agenda item number 8, reconfiguration of peripatetic social workers post to peripatetic support workers, children's services, to consider the report to the Chief Officer of Social Services. And I believe Councillor Chris Davis is taking this report.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councillors will be familiar with at least the biggest bulk of this report because it was initially presented and approved by Council at the meeting on the 26th of April this year. Endeavours have been made to recruit the 2 fixed-time social workers, but unfortunately without any success. The challenges for the recruitment of the 2 social workers has been people securing and accessing permanent social work roles, and also the availability of agency workers on good hourly rates, and obviously the flexibility of agency work and contracts. This report seeks a council agreement to recruit 3 support workers for 24 months. This approach outlined in this report, and certainly the detail at 4.10, and the request for council to reconfigure and employ 3 support workers is a really, really exciting opportunity for us. I endorse this report to you, as this will greatly assist our recovery out of COVID, and this investment will support to secure positive outcomes for children, young people and our families. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'll move to the recommendations in the report contained at 2.1 to 2.3. And the recommendations at 2.1 is the content of the report be noted. At 2.2, the recruitment of 3 full-time peripatetic support workers to children's services for a 24-month period be approved. And recommendation at 2.3, in 12 months' time, an update to council sharing the learning from the recruitment of the posts and a new way of working be provided. Subject to questions and comments, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I move.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. Is there a seconder for this report?
I second, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Councillor Gareth Richards has had his hand up for some time. I'm not sure whether that's a question or whether that was a delay from previous. Councillor Richards?
It is a question, Caris. A couple of questions. Okay. I think Councillor Davis touched on the subject of the temporary recruitment being. Hello? Am I still in?
You are, Councillor Richards.
All right, because my screen has gone all disappeared. Touched on the fact that the 2-year contract was a possible hindrance on appointing the social workers, Councillor Davis. Do you envisage any problem with regards to the support worker recruitment, as that's on the same basis?
We don't envisage, Councillor Richards, struggling to recruit to the support worker. We've currently got a support worker vacancy in the child and family team, and the department, the child and family team managers are currently been undertaking an exercise to recruit to that support worker vacancy, and there's been quite a large interest in it. So obviously, if council approves this evening, we will have potentially then 4 vacancies that we can recruit to, and we don't envisage that the department will struggle to recruit to these posts.
Thank you for that. I've got a further question on the back of that. With regards to the appointment of the 3 support workers, is it going to lead to any change in the service that was going to be delivered by 2 social workers?
I think, as I said, Councillor Richards, in my preamble, this creates an opportunity for us to do something differently, particularly now as we come out of COVID. I think, this gives us a chance to put 3 support workers across the child and family team and the children looked after team to provide intensive support to the families, and support workers will have more scope and more time actually to be able to directly provide hand-holding support to families, to children, young people and families. So I think if we had probably had an opportunity to revisit this at the beginning, we probably may have considered going down the road of actually bringing forward a proposal for support workers in the first instance, because it provides us with much more scope to provide early intervention and prevention support to families across the county borough.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Thanks for that.
No worries.
Councillor Clive Jones, please.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I've got 2 questions to follow on with what Councillor Richards has asked. What qualifications are we asking for in relation to these support workers? What will be stipulated in the advert?
Okay, I understand, and I may have to divert to Lisa Curtis-Jones, but I understand that support workers work to a QCF qualification as part of the Social Care Wales qualification framework. Obviously, the detail, they are unqualified members of staff in that they're not social work qualified, but obviously they'll come with a whole range of previous experience. But I don't know whether Lisa wants to come in and say anything further about the Social Care Wales qualification framework.
You are right, Councillor Davis. They're usually at QCF level 3. Most of them have done a health and social care course, but generally most of the support workers that apply are graduates who have done some form of degree. They've had lots of experience. They see it as a foot in the door with regards to applying for social work post and training in the future. So they are usually quite well qualified.
And I think it's fair to say, Lisa, isn't it, the approach that we've taken in Merthyr Tydfil over the years has paid dividends to us, because a number of our support workers have gone on, used it as a platform and a springboard to access a social work degree. So it's almost like we've adopted a grow our own approach to recruiting, selecting and training social workers.
Yeah, and that's been very positive for us in the past, because lots of those secondees have gone on to be managers, and one is now head of service.
I hope that answers your question, Councillor Jones.
Yes, it does. Thank you for that. And hopefully you're going to get 4 new support workers in the not too distant future. My second question is on relation to paragraph 4.2 on page 47 under the heading Capacity to Deliver Change. It says capacity size has improved, but there continues to be a number of examples of caseloads that are higher than they should be for the effective delivery of our work. The question is, what is the current caseload size for a social worker in children's services in Merthyr Tydfil?
Okay, I'll put that question across to Lisa, because she's probably better placed from an operational practice perspective to answer your question, Councillor Jones.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jones. In reality, what we would like in an ideal world is a caseload of around about 15. And in practice, we've got a range, so it depends which team people are in. But generally, I think the caseload is probably between 20 and up to 33 in some cases. Now, that might be because somebody's carrying a caseload of 4 families and they've got 6 siblings. So that doesn't necessarily reflect that they're working with 33 different families. So, you know, it's difficult to put a number on it. But ideally, what we want is 15. So support workers will help, because they'll be able to do some of the direct work and some of the paperwork and things that the legwork, if you like, the social workers haven't got the time to do. So to try and reduce some of those caseloads and close cases down. Also, some people may have a high caseload of, say, 30, but they may be 5 inactive cases because people haven't got around to sort of closing those cases down, whereas support workers will be able to assist with that. So that's what we're looking at.
So through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, the caseload is likely to remain the same in Merthyr Tydfil, but because of the fact that you're going hopefully to appoint these support workers will reduce the volume of work that's there with each case.
It'll be a bit of both. Hopefully caseloads will reduce, but also they will help with the workload. What I will say, this isn't just sort of an isolated case to Merthyr. In generally, you know, caseloads for children's services is high across, well, I would say Wales and the UK. We struggle to recruit social workers. We always have lots of vacancies, and then obviously that has a knock-on effect then to caseloads. We're also seeing a high demand in that service area at the minute. So therefore caseloads are high, certainly around child protection and children looked after. There are other areas where perhaps children with disability sometimes and sort of leaving care services where their caseloads are much sort of smaller in comparison to some of the sort of the child protection teams and things like that.
And Councillor Jones, just to add as well, obviously it's something in my role as the portfolio member with Lisa that we monitor and quality assure the caseload sizes and look to reduce them where we can, particularly get social workers to close cases where they're inactive and they're not held on caseloads of individual workers. Scrutiny Committee has also in the past taken a close interest in caseload sizes, and I'm sure it's something they will look at again, but be reassured that we do our best to keep the caseload sizes. And in answer to your question, I would say that the recruitment of 3 support workers will certainly help to reduce the pressure on the caseloads of social workers and ultimately help with our position of reducing caseload overall.
Thank you for answering the questions, both of you. I'm sure every one of the elected members in the council really understands the pressures that are on social services everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you for your support, Councillor Jones, and your questions.
There are no other questions, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Okay, can we move on to comments then, please, members?
There are no comments. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Clive Jones.
You're on mute, Clive. Clive, you're on
Sorry.
mute.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry about that. On page 47, it refers there to the number of excess hours worked in relation to the 20-hour carryover period for the flexi system. And obviously, every employer and local authority has a responsibility for the well-being of all their staff. So with the appointment of these 4, hopefully the considerable pressures that are there, Mr Deputy Mayor, will be hopefully considerably reduced.
There are no other comments, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Okay, if there are no further comments, can we take it to the vote then, please?
So would all councillors in agreement with the recommendations please raise their hands? That's it, isn't it? That's complete. That's unanimous and that's carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members. So we move on to agenda item number 9 then, which is anti-bullying statutory guidance for schools. Consider the report of the Chief Education Officer, and I believe that Councillor Mitten is taking this.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. As you can see on the papers on page 51, there is the summary of the report at 1.1. It provides an update on anti-bullying guidance for schools, which has been reviewed and revised in light of the suite of statutory anti-bullying guidance produced by Welsh Government in November last year. Please see Appendix 1. And tonight's recommendations are, at 2.1, the contents of this report are noted and councillors agreed to promote the guidance. And at 2.2, an update is provided in a year's time detailing the impact of the marketing of this guidance. Just to add to that personally, as Cabinet Member, Mr Deputy Mayor, I know that our Scrutiny Committee will take this up in their work programme to see how progress is getting on in relation to this. And also, I'm pleased to say that myself, the leader, our Deputy Leader Clive Jones, Opposition Deputy Leader Clive Jones, and Opposition Leader Darren Roberts, I know are in support of this, having spoken to my Chief Education Officer, and hopefully with their agreement as well, we'll hopefully get some social media posts and maybe some short video clips out from the 4 of us to show our cross-party support in this as soon as possible, as soon as we can manage that. So on that note, I will put those recommendations to you and move them. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Midden. Do we have a seconder for that, please?
I second, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Have we got any questions on that then, please?
No, Mr Deputy Mayor, no questions.
No questions. Any comments, members?
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. What can I say? I fully support this this report. Bullying is an abhorrent act. It certainly has no place in our society, and it most definitely doesn't have any place in our schools. I'll gladly support the Deputy Leader's invitation to put social media coverage out on behalf of cross-party working on this. I welcome this report. It was something that I was in conversation with the Chief Education Officer. I think it was around about the same time last year, but we were waiting on further guidance from Welsh Government. So, yeah, fully support this, and happy to take you up on your offer, Lisa.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Davis.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. This is a fantastic report, and I'd just like to pay tribute to Sue Walker, and in particular to Sarah Bowen, who's led this work on behalf of the schools department. I know there's been previous school conferences that have had a focus on bullying. As Councillor Roberts said, there's no place for bullying in this county borough, particularly in our schools, and this obviously strategy goes some way to tackling that. I'd like to pay tribute as the Children's Champion to the work of the Merthyr Tydfil Borough-wide Youth Forum and the Youth Cabinet, the support they provided to the schools department in championing this issue, and just say well done, da iawn to everybody. Thank you.
And Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Yeah, I echo the views of Councillor Darren Roberts, because this is very detailed guidance, and it says in there as well the exact interpretation of a bully, and one of the, I think the new word for them is perpetrators. And as a school governor of many years, I sincerely hope that all school governors and all teaching staff appraise themselves of what's in this report, and I commend it to everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey Jones.
Again, can you hear me this time?
You can, Councillor Jones.
You can this time. Well, first of all, can I thank Matthew, because during my unsuccessful effort of getting through some hour ago, Matthew took the opportunity of phoning my wife and telling her to tell me to press the button on the bottom of the earphones. Now I've got to live with this after the meeting finishes. I've got to face my wife. But for the rest of you, my apologies. As far as the report is concerned, excellent report from the Welsh Government, but should I say, not before time. Not before time. It's taken a long, long time for this statutory guidance to come through. And the two recommendations that are within the report interest me, because it's going to ensure that every councillor within Merthyr County Borough Council, and in fact throughout Wales, is getting involved directly with this anti-bullying guidance. The first recommendation basically says that councillors agree to promote the guidance. So there's no way in which we can walk away from it and say, up to the schools now, we've got to ensure that the schools are taking the bull by the horn to get rid of this terrible occurrence within schools. And we've talked a lot over the last 2 years about attendance. And bullying, as we all know, plays an integral part in not only attendance, but persistent absenteeism as well. Okay, persistent. So by going down the road that is facing us now, I have a feeling we are going to improve attendance within our schools, which can only have a knock-on effect, and that is on increased standards. The second recommendation is that in a 12 months' time, we get information back to the council regarding the impact of the success on marketing this guidance, because it's easy enough for Sue to send the books out, send the guidance out to all schools, and they just put it on the shelf and forget about it. No, there's going to be something in addition now, and that is, in a 12 months' time, we'll want to know exactly what has happened. So I totally welcome this. I congratulate Sue and Sarah Bowen on this, and Lisa as a portfolio member, and let every one of us within this council take the bull by the horns and ensure that the guidance is taken on board by the schools and the parents and the governors and the pupils. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin O'Neill.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Again, not to echo the others, but I do support this report. Bully is a term that's used loosely, and it's good to see a descriptive of it. My daughter was subject of bullying in one of our secondary schools. Must have been over 10 years ago now, and the journey for a parent then was a difficult one. And this report will assist those parents because they do need assistance. It's a difficult time. It's funny to reflect now that some of those girls who bullied my daughter are best friends now. So you see how these things turn around. You need to have a clarity about it. I pick up on the comments of Councillor Harvey Jones, who was someone who's very, very experienced in this. And I think his point is well made about looking in a 12 months' time and seeing what the impact is. And also, I trust that those who are on the Board of Governors will focus their attention to the journey of the victim here. It's not like many things, the punishment. It's recognising, listening, and dealing with it appropriately. Bearing in mind, many things get put under the umbrella of bullying that are not. Sometimes children don't get on, and sometimes children do silly things. That's the nature of it. But I think shining the light is very important, but also having some real clarity and having some real structure for those members of Board of Governors is really important. I too, like Councillor Jones, look forward to the reports back in the future. Thank you, Monitoring Officer.
Thank you.
Okay.
There are no comments. Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Thank you all. No more comments. So can we take this to the vote then, please?
All those in favour, please. Yes, thank you. That's carried unanimously.
Okay. Thank you all. The next two items, item 10, delegated decisions made during COVID-19 lockdown. Item 11, work experience scheme for first year evaluation report, for both information reports. So I think we can move on to agenda item 12, which is to deal with any other urgent business or correspondence. There is no urgent business. Item 13, to receive communications received by His Worship the Mayor. There are no communications. So I believe we can move on to item 14, and we need to move section 100.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I'd like to move section 100, please.
There's a
And I second that, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Can we vote on that then, please?
And that's carried, Mr. Mayor. So you can, Mr. Deputy Mayor, so you can move on.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, Mr.
It's gone through. So yeah.
Can we just check that everybody then who doesn't need to be party to this leaves the meeting, and that will include, of course, the interim chief executive and interim deputy chief executive.